This research project follows 3 studies published by Marcelo Urquia, a research scientist here at St. Michael's Hospital. These studies found that mothers born in India, now residing in Canada, were more likely to have a male child than a girl child. The bias towards sons was mostly among mothers with 2 previous daughters, and the bias remained even after the mother had resided in Ontario for over 10 years.
I think the results were kind of shocking in the sense that we had initially heard that son preference is a problem back home. What was so surprising was that this problem also exists in Brampton, in Peel, and that is a problem that was kind of highlighted by this research study. And at least now we can say with some certainty that this problem exists and we need to acknowledge it and we need to do something about it.
They established a very strong rapport with us way back in 2011 when they actually approached us and said, you know, this is what we want to do. We would like to have a partnership, because just before that there were stories circulating in the media about some hospitals, you know, having suspicions about this kind of activity. And I had spoken out about what I felt was lacking in that study. I think Marcelo was very dedicated, very committed, and actually did a fantastic research that should be very useful to the community, but also to the service providers and service delivery providers.
The results of the study weren't really a shock to me, to be honest. It's as someone who grew up in this community, as a female who belongs to this community, it's something that I've experienced, as the people that are around me, the girls around me have experienced. And it kind of just reminded me of how much more work needs to be done on the issue.
From a research perspective, we thought the next logical step was to work more closely with our community partners. We really wanted to try to find out, to try to understand son preference a little better, but also to see if there was anything that could be done about son preference in the community, if there was anything culturally appropriate that we could do. We had the opportunity to run 4 focus groups. We found the discussions really rich and interesting. The participants were really keen to share their stories and their opinions with us. One of the interesting things we found was that participants all felt that in general the community does place more value on sons and men than on women and daughters. And this was because there are very specific customs and traditions that were common in the community. Say we have a mother and a father who have both a son and a daughter. Both of these children get married. The first tradition is that sons continue to live with his parents after marriage, whereas daughters effectively leave her family's home to go live with her husband and his parents. The second tradition is that typically only sons inherit assets from his parents. This contrasts with daughters who receive assets indirectly. Her parents give these to her husband in the form of a dowry when she marries. These assets effectively leave the family and may be considered a drain on family resources. A fourth custom is that sons reside with parents and he inherits assets. And since he inherits assets, a son is considered old age security for his parents. Finally, a common understanding is that only the actions of daughters and not sons can potentially dishonor the family. As a result of the greater value placed on sons, many participants described direct and indirect pressure from family and members of the community to have a son, particularly in families that had no sons and after the birth of a daughter. The suggestion from participants was that the most actionable thing for us to do was to try to improve awareness and education about son preference. So we convened a community advisory panel to figure out how best to do this. During the 2-hour discussion with Punjabi Community Health Services staff and community members, the group decided that developing an info poster would be a useful first step. We describe a few facts about son preference in the info poster, but our key message is really that daughters can do everything that was only expected of sons in the past. We want people to come away with the feeling that daughters should really be celebrated.
So these posters are so important for us. People will look at it and they will get used to it and they will talk about it. And I think slowly and slowly we would have a movement whereby we are raising awareness in our community.
I think the poster is an educational tool in and of itself. It will be useful. You know, the value of a girl child is as important as the value of a male child, you know, and where women can go for support and guidance in such cases.